Welcome, everyone. I'm Phoebe Morad, Executive Director of Lutherans Restoring Creation, and grateful that you're all here tonight with us. And then whoever gets to watch this later, or maybe when you're not driving, welcome. I'm going to open us up tonight, and if you can chat, if you can type in the chat where you are coming in from, the land that you find yourself on tonight, or driving upon. Don't type though if you're driving, please. I'm going to open us up with Lutherans Restoring Creation as a board, as a community, decided to do our acknowledgement that's a little bit more about knowledge than just the land that we're on, acknowledging the fact that we weren't the first people to take care of creation. As we live, work, and worship in the land that is now called the United States, Lutherans Restoring Creation recognizes that we do so on land that was stolen from Indigenous peoples. As we are called to restore creation, we're also called to restore right relationship with one another. As we join in this holy vocation of loving our neighbor, we honor all our Indigenous siblings who have been companions of the lands, waters, and beings of Turtle Island since time immemorial. We charge our community to learn about the original and continuous stewards of the land upon which we exist. We lament legacies of violence, cultural genocide, and displacement of Indigenous communities, committing ourselves to hearing and speaking the truth of that history and its ongoing effects. May we gather faithfully in mind, body, and spirit, so that we may mend what has been broken and embody Christ's gospel of abundant life. Welcome to you all in that spirit. And with that, I would love to hand the baton to Gabrielle, who's going to share with us a little bit of the plethora of resources we have to do with Season of Creation. And then we'll get a little bit more into some details from our special guest, Carol Devine with Eco America's Blessed Tomorrow, and fellow pastor to many of you. And then we'll be able to share some stories near the end of our time together tonight as well. So over to you, Gabrielle.
Hey, everybody. Well, I'm glad you're here with us. I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to start with what you can find on our Lutherans Restoring Creation website, and then I'll pop over to Season of Creation. I am going to go off the assumption that is knowingly incorrect, that you know nothing about the Season of Creation. I know many people have celebrated before for many years, for longer than I have been involved with this stuff, but I always want to make sure that if you didn't know anything, that you would not feel behind. Okay. Give me just a second to share my screen. All right, so here is our Season of Creation on our Lutherans Restoring Creation, Lutherans Restoring Creation site. We've got a lot of different resources dating back for a while. Many of you know that we have creation care focused lectionary commentaries for every week and lectionary cycle outside of the season creation, but especially in the Season of Creation, we have some great resources that you can celebrate from September 1st to October 4th. We have got our Season of Creation. I'll go there in a second. I do want to point out that we have a new worship guide for 2024. This came to us from Reverend Jim Friedrich, who is on the call with us. I hope he will share that later tonight. I can share my screen later if you want, or if you want to go through it, you may. We also have Creation Care Lectionary for the Season of Creation for years A, B, and C from our friends at the Northern Illinois Synod. Great to check out. And of course, the Lutheran World Federation. There's lots of good stuff here. I just want to make sure you know that this is here. You can see on the right sidebar that, of course, each Sunday can be themed. Oftentimes, we have Planet Earth Sunday, Humanity Sunday, Sky Sunday, Mountain Sunday, and then there can be St. Francis Sunday too. And am I correct in saying that sometimes those themes change? Yeah. Lots of good stuff. Okay, but I'm going to take you over to the guide released for 2024 from the official seasonofcreation.org. And our theme for this year is the first fruits of hope. Of course, this is an ecumenical celebration that not just Lutherans are doing, but our Christian siblings around the world are doing, which is a really exciting time to be able to find common values in our caring for creation. The theme, first fruits of creation, or they're saying to hope and act with creation, is talking to the crisis of climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution, where many are beginning to despair, and where we can instead lean on our hope, the hope of resurrection, and to have concrete embodied actions, not just a, you know, insubstantial hope, but one that is guided by our own actions. Okay, great resources here. I won't go through everybody's stuff, but I will point out, of course, there's the Pope in the Orthodox Church, that the Lutheran World Federation is a big part of this. We have the General Secretary of the LWF here, saying the season of creation is a source of strength and communion, encouraging us to truly to hope and act with creation. Again, with our embodied hope. All right, we've got lots of good stuff here. I hope that you have ecumenical partners in your community that are also celebrating with you. It's a great opportunity to do that. Okay. We do have some great scriptural backing. I won't go too much into it because I'm going to drop this resource in the chat for you to explore on your own. By the way, of course, I'm going through the English guide, but they have a lot of different languages that it's available in. Like, this is a global event, so many different languages represented, and I'll pop that in the chat after I'm done going through it. Yes, but it's inspired by Romans 8, chapter 8, 19 through 25, with the first fruits of hope and to hope and act for creation. Lots of references to the groaning of creation, as if with childbirth. We all know. I don't need to go too much into that. We all know that the pains that the earth is going through. And again, creation is standing on tiptoe, waiting for the children of God to be revealed. I think that's such beautiful imagery as well. The first fruits of hope. Then there's some great worship resources. I'm hoping we'll get to see a couple of those and that many people might share their own. There's a prayer here. And then there's many ideas for how to celebrate the season of creation. Of course, this is where you get to be creative, and I hope that we'll get to hear some of your unique ideas. But some of the ones that are highlighted here, of course, the Feast of Creation on September 1st. Lots of us have, I think we have one in the Lutheran tradition. I'm a pretty new Lutheran, but we also have, oh, Phoebe, you're going to help me here, but the Harvest Sunday, right? As well.
Rogation.
Yep, Rogation Sunday. Thank you.
Sunday.
Uh-huh.
Not a word we use every day.
Yeah. All right. There is the Cathedral of Creation. Of course, you can hold your service outdoors if, you know, your fall weather allows it. Prayer services. They lift up a creation walk or pilgrimage, which can be really great. As well as we Lutherans, we have God's Work Our Hands Sunday, which is on September 8th, which also falls in the season of creation. So you definitely can find a community service project, local education, or advocacy project to lift up creation care on that day, as well as throughout the season of creation. And of course, they want you to share your photos, which you definitely should. Be loud and proud, wear your Lutheran shirts, and also make sure you send them to us. We would love to uplift your efforts. There's so much more in here, including advocacy. And I know I heard from Lisa Brenskelly, who's on this call, about how her church uses the season of creation and God's Work Our Hands to do not just community service, but also advocacy. So I'm hoping that you might share a little bit later about that more, Lisa. You don't have to, but there's so much in here, and I have already spent 10 minutes talking at your ear about it. But I did just want to go through a few of the things in there. So right now, I would love to stop talking and take a listening role, and I would love to pass it on to Carol Devine, who is the executive director of One Home, One Future, and is going to talk to us about her experience with the season of creation. Thanks, Carol.
Thanks, Gabrielle. So I'm not the executive director of One Home, One Future. It's okay. I'm the director of Blessed Tomorrow, and we are a partner of One Home, One Future, along with 45 other denominations and faith organizations. And so many of you I have been with before. I've been on this call before, but it's been quite a while. I don't know when it was, Phoebe, but it is a delight and honor to be back with you all. And so thankful for the wonderful work that each of you do and that all of you do collectively. I was just chatting with Phoebe and Gabrielle before this call started that I started celebrating as a pastor the season of creation before there was what we now know as the season of creation, and before the Catholic Church was involved, because it started in Australia, actually, by a Lutheran pastor at a Lutheran congregation. And it was just their own desire to celebrate creation. And as I remember, we all know that we're in the ordinary time right now, and that after for pastors especially, sometimes after Pentecost there can be kind of a lull, and it can feel like we need something to celebrate because it's just this ordinary time. And so he decided that because of that he would for a month do this season of creation. And Norman, I'm going to put this in the chat because I just think it's so fascinating. But for those who aren't able to see the chat, I'm also going to read it to you. But the first season of creation was celebrated under Norman Habel's leadership at St. Stephen's Lutheran Church in South Australia. Habel wrote, "For 4 weeks, we relived the great creation stories in the Bible. The children loved it. We also confessed what we have done to creation and how God is working to renew creation. It was an exciting beginning." But then the World Council of Churches got involved and was instrumental in setting the dates. And also the Ecumenical Patriarch got named in September 1st to be the day of prayer for creation for the Orthodox. And in 2015, Pope Francis also called the Catholic Church to celebrate that as well. And so the way that you, Gabrielle, kind of first were talking about it is how I used to do it, which is every Sunday kind of highlight a different part of creation. And it can be, the mountains and the water, the air, soil, or the land. It can be, you could do trees. You could really decide how you want to do it based on the scriptures or based on other themes that you have. And then I've known other churches I know one congregation that the whole church, it's a smaller congregation, is going to do a book study for the month. And the pastor, is going to preach, kind of from that, and they're going to have that kind of experience together. I know some who worship outside during the season of creation. It's a wonderful time if it's, if the weather's appropriate, to be outside and do that. And a lot of us did that during the pandemic. So that's always a really fun thing to do. But I wanted to take just a moment and tell you all about, if you don't already know, how many of you, by either raise of hand or some kind of sign, unless you're driving, know about One Home, One Future? Is this something that you all have? Okay, a little bit. So I'm going to just quickly share my screen and then just tell you a little more about, here we go. Since Zoom has done the updates, I always forget where everything is. Okay, so I won't go into the whole long story of it, but in short, One Home, One Future is a movement of for all people of faith and spiritual people. And all of these 45 organizations and denominations have come together to say, on creation care, we can all stand. We may worship a little bit differently. We may have different creeds and different practices, and yet we all are called by our holy scriptures, by our holy texts, to care for the more than human world, to be in communion with the more than human world. And so this is something on which we can all agree. This is created for congregations and for people of faith to use as you will. It is never to replace any denomination's program. It is never to replace any other organization, but instead to uplift and come together and share our resources and share our events and work together so that all people of faith might come to have a deeper faith through this work and may come to see our connection to each other, other people of faith, as well as the more than human world. And you can see I've been scrolling for quite a long time of all of the resources that are here. And these resources come from Lutherans Restoring Creation and Adama and Creation Justice Ministries, as well as other denominations. And so there is a plethora of many resources that are available. And this early October will be the 1-year celebration. And so on September 24th, we are celebrating this past year of all that this now, oh gosh, I don't remember the number of congregations that have joined now, but we are as many congregations, more than 150,000 people across the US. People of many faiths who have been doing work and being supported by and journeying with each other in this work. So on September 24th, we're having an all-day event that begins at 1 p.m. Eastern time, and it's just going to be lots of things that our speakers and various sessions so that people can pop in and out as they desire, with the main event being at 7 p.m. Eastern time, which is 6 p.m. Central Time and 4 p.m. Pacific Time, where we are going to have denomination leaders, as well as hear from various congregations who have been involved in One Home, One Future, to just celebrate some of the things that they have done. The first 100 congregations that sign up to do a watch party are going to get some money for snacks, as well as some freebies to share with the group. And so if that is something that you think would be fun to do, especially because it does happen during Season of Creation, I encourage you to do that. So September 24th, it's toward the end of Season of Creation. You still have time to plan for such a thing, and encourage folks to get involved in that as you feel led. We would love to welcome more of you to this. Now, I was just going to also show you that there is a Season of Creation page on One Home, One Future, and it's onehomeonefuture.org, all one word, where you will also see the resources that Gabrielle just went over are also found here on this page, and it'll take me a second, but I know that they're here because I just saw them a minute ago. Here's one of them. It is your all's work. And then also this year's celebration, and that whole document is there, as well as many others. And another great resource that for those of you who may know Margaret Bullitt Jonas is such a great leader in this work. She is an Episcopal priest, but she, along with a colleague of hers, has created a Season of Creation liturgical guide for years A, B, and C. And so another way for, another thing for you to look at. Also down here at the bottom of the page are 3 videos And one of them was this year a Creation Justice Ministries webinar that was just talking with people about Season of Creation. So you might get some ideas from that, as well as this sermon by Otis Moss, and then this Let's Talk Climate webinar, or not webinar, I guess webcast that is there. I also just wanted to show you this, which is also on that same page, but I'll also drop it in the chat for you. I'll do that in just a second. Is this looking at this year? So we are in Revised Common Lectionary Year B, and so on this document here, this resource, there's a link to various songs and hymns that you can use, as well as other resources. But what I did is give just some tidbits for this year's lectionary texts, and chose just some of them for each Sunday to highlight if I were going to be using those texts, the kinds of things that I would ask, the kinds of questions, and how I might go with that, either as I was preparing for worship as a whole, or for a sermon, or for some kind of a study. So I have the various texts here, and then just kind of talk about ways that we could go with this and connect them to climate. I think that the cool thing is that these are the texts that they were not selected for Season of Creation. These are just the lectionary texts, right? But when we put on our creation care lens and we read it with that in mind, there's just so much that we could bring out and then pull back around to celebrate creation. So I don't know if I've gone over my time or not, but if I might, I would love to. I'm going to stop sharing, and I would love to see your all's faces, and then learn from you any questions that you might have or thoughts on this. And I know then you all are going to share yourselves, but just if there are any questions before you do that.
I just want to clarify too, because we have so many wonderful partners, and then you see the long list of them that Carol just kind of scrolled through, all these different people that are doing this work. I do feel like Blessed Tomorrow has been able to help us as Eco America, as a larger organization. They help so many of us in this world of wanting to speak and be a bridge to larger organizations. They're like our communications team, right? Where all of us are just trying to kind of have our heads down and do our stuff within our own little circles, which is important, and important to do things in context and in our language. It's really wonderful to have partners like Eco America's Blessed Tomorrow to be able to really not only blast out the information all together as a collaborative entity, like One Home, One Future as a campaign is doing, but they've also been incredible help in helping us figure out, for one thing, getting the social behavioral data in and translating that for us to use. Like, how do we talk to people that this isn't just innately something important to them? But you've also been so helpful in also providing survey information. So some of that knowledge is going to be coming out as far as how do we listen to what's going on out there, even outside of our smaller circles here? How do we listen to each other? And so I just want to thank Carol and your entire team for being able to do that. And when you think of all those logos and wonder, aren't there too many? And there can never be too many. We're all doing very different things. If we screwed up the world in so many different ways, it's going to take many different ways to fix it. But to kind of put in a nutshell, I think why it's so important that we have you all as a partner.
Oh, well, thank you, Phoebe. And you
Thank
know
you.
what? I learned of a new creation care Christian organization today and had a meeting with the founder of it. He started it just during the pandemic, so it's quite young, but I was like, oh, there's another one I didn't know about. There are a lot of different groups doing this work, but all with their own particular either location or flair, denominational, faith lens, that kind of thing. So it's all needed, like you said.
And I forget who it was. I'll I'll think of the name later, but referred to how many different organizations are doing this work, almost like an immune system, you know, having being more like an immune system where you need to go to where the need is as a local action. And in our particular circles and different denominational flavors, I think it's really important to have that kind of interaction and communication and plug into kind of tap the energy that a larger organization like yours has, Carol. So thank you. I did, speaking of our larger force and just the fact that things like having a banner like the One Home, One Future kind of sign literally puts on a church. There's also the sign that we vote. And since it is also that season, I'm just going to put in the chat now with that introduction that our colleagues in DC are basically wanting to remind us that what we do as part of our season of creation, when we tell the rest of the community that we're doing this, it does send a message. And those people that run our communities, that are our government and public servants, they need to know that ELCA is here and that we vote, and that it's not just, you know, Tim Waltz, but there are lots of people in their communities that are Lutherans, and Lutherans vote. So just take a look at that when you can, because it's very helpful. You feel very tentative about talking about politics, but if we can talk about season of creation in this loving, generous, life-giving way, just don't feel that that's not counting. It counts. It's part of the election season itself, is to refill ourselves. But the more that you tell people outside of your own little circle, the more leverage it has out in the world. Sorry, I will stop going on about that, but please dig into that. And I'd love to, at this point, hear more from other folks. And certainly if you have questions for Carol or Gabrielle, but if you think of questions, pop in with them. But I would like to specifically hand the baton to Jim, since you're there, if you can share your materials and your story with us. It's good to see
Sure,
you.
I'll be glad to. I'll do it real quickly because I know you have a lot of people want to be part of this. First of all, I want to say thank you to Carol. When you started with your history of working with Season of Creation, it's kind of my own story. I'm retired now, but in the parish, I went through this 3-year cycle several times. And I think especially I got started when I noticed the name Norm Hobble. He was a professor of mine when he was in the US for several years, 50 years ago. So he is still with us. I think he's in his 90s now. Still prolific author, writer, theologian. He's done a lot of hymns. He does a lot of materials. And one of the things I appreciated always about doing Season of Creation was it came with a lot of prepackaged things. So I'm speaking mainly to those people who are the worship planners, people trying to put together a service and use resources. Gabrielle, if you can show that and share that, I'll say just a little bit more about it. But I just want to give it to you as an example of things you can use. And I think it's somewhat similar to what Carol has pointed out already. So this is, there you go. What I tried to do, since I've used the season, the regular 3-year cycle, all the Sundays of planet Earth, humanity, earth, river, sky, all those, I've done those so many times. I thought it's time for something a little fresh, and I didn't see a lot of other things for this year. So I wanted to incorporate some of the material from the national or the ecumenical theme, which is this to hope and act with creation, that theme, which is part of what I'm using. But are you able to pull that document up at all, Gabrielle? Or is that, if you can do that? While she's trying to do that, one of the resources I use that I really recommend for people, if you haven't seen this, it's God's Good Earth, which is written by the Rowthorns, Anne and Jeffrey Rowthorn, Episcopalian couple who have put together 52 different Sunday themes with litanies, prayers, all kinds of wonderful resources. So I tapped into this. And just to make it real quick for you, what I chose then for the themes, because I think it's easier always to plan around different specific themes for each Sunday. I chose to first start out with the theme of wonder, and that's one of the themes they use in this resource. But I think of it as kind of the creation story, kind of the beginning, in the beginning kind of story. But there's all kinds of litanies you can scroll on down. There's some wonderful litanies that I included in here, again from the book. Some possible readings that I chose that may be helpful, some possible ideas for preaching to go with that. And then hymns also that come from a variety of sources, a lot of Lutheran, but other places. Then quickly moving to the second Sunday, I chose despair. If the first Sunday is wonder and creation, second story is sort of the fall and kind of the brokenness, but also very much the struggle we have in this kind of work, talking about how we face the challenges of the broken earth and the efforts to cope with that, deal with that. So you can move on down. The next Sunday then picks up more on the ecumenical theme, the idea of hope. And so it then can be focused much more on kind of a Easter celebration. We're probably in our worship going to add more white colors, more themes that and more colors and art pieces that'll kind of help restore that. And then the final study is resolve, or kind of where do we go from here? What's the hope and actions of the creation? So those are the themes and all the resources that you can look at later if they're of any help to you. It's just another effort to try to keep building the repertoire of materials that we can use. That was my hope. That's my pitch.
I so appreciate that, Jim, because one of the disappointments I've had, there is a lot of ideas in the ecumenical
Yes.
material, but it isn't laid out to have 4 or 5 Sundays, which is what we
Exactly.
have. So
Right.
that's also what I was trying to do, is like, how can we extend that over the whole season? So that's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that'll spur more creative thinking, because there just are more and more resources all the time. The amount of music that's available, the hymns, and picking things that fit. I know it's a challenge, but it's a blessing, and at the same time they have so much to work with. Yeah.
Thank you, Jim.
Hmm.
So I would love to invite any and all of you you can raise your hand, you can write in the chat. I'd love to also hear any of your experiences being part of just a person in the pew, if you've experienced Season of Creation. I'm grateful that our pastor, even before we had to have worship outside through a pandemic, my pastor took advantage of warm summer months to be able to put us outside, and she wanted to experiment with, it was like sometimes when we had a 5th Sunday of the month, she decided to just get experimental. And so that's how she kind of slipped into this idea in the summer months, and then was able to kind of dive right in then a year later with the Season of a Creation. So again, knowing your audience, if this is, daunting because it's different, to be able to know who you're with and how scary this might be. And sometimes you might want to start with a blessing of the animals, because that seems safe, and lean in. That might be a way to do it. And I'll also mention too, one thing that we've done in the past, because this comes up around the same time of God's work, our hands. We usually do a lot of yard cleanups at our church or in our community, so that we could roll in the idea of compost and some educational things with that. But we also made recycled crafts with our youth would put together recycled crafts to then share with people that either couldn't go outside or had Meals on Wheels delivered. But we made, bird houses and that sort of thing. And bee houses was another thing that we did in the past. But just trying to be creative with not necessarily taking over any particular other event, but just integrating a environmental eco lens to your next activity. I literally hear crickets, which is funny when it's quiet now. I don't know if you guys can hear the crickets in my background.
A little bit.
Hi, Sharon.
Hi, our church is walking baby steps, and we're getting there. And as I'm looking at this, we are going to probably in September, we started a pollinated garden. This is our first full year of it, having started late last summer, and it's amazing. And it's amazing. And if I were going to share a story, because I both sit in the pews, but I also am the head of some committees and I work strongly in the community for the environment, but I would focus on our pollinator garden, both for the kids and for the adults, because all of a sudden now people who were not so interested in the garden are like butterflies, goldfinches, and some of our plants grew where by rights they never should have grown. And now we have a celosia plant that's about 5 feet high and nobody knows where it came from. So we look at those and we say, in a garden, there's the seed and there's hope and there's life, and there are also challenges. And I'm very thankful that our garden did not get washed away. We had 10 inches of rain where I live. And just to see how this happens. And we've had some folks from the community, a young man who visited us from out of state. They would come because at the end of our pollinator garden, on the kind of like a right angle to it, we have a prayer bench and a cross, and we have some flowers there. And the one word that he gave us was, I come here because it's calm. I have nothing like this in my hometown, nothing in my yard, because all we have is sand. And I guess that's my story. As I look at creation, I see the up and the down and the challenges and the struggles, but I see most of all hope every day.
Thank you, Sharon. That's quite a ministry you grew.
I wish I had a picture for you. The flowers.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Send us a few and we'll add it to the
I will.
follow-up post.
I will.
Thank you.
You're welcome. No, thank you. Because if I weren't here, I probably wouldn't have been pushing so hard for this. It took me 2 years to get people to think about it. And now that we did, I keep expanding.
Excellent. That's
So
how it goes.
You're praising God with all creation.
And in
Beautiful.
a city that's, in a city where kids don't know what a garden is, it just becomes so important for them to see it.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you located, Sharon?
I'm in Waterbury. Our church is on Hamilton Avenue. It's called
Connecticut.
Christ.
Oh, thank you.
In Connecticut. Mhm. And actually, we borrowed something from New York called prairie smoke. And we did not know that this plant would grow, and we're right on the New York border, so to speak. Oh my goodness, I'm so surprised. They grew.
I'll add one dimension to one of the things we'll be incorporating during the course of Season of Creation, and again, tapping into the indigenous climate or culture in which we live in. I suppose it's typical in a lot of places to find the indigenous cultures, you have to go to casinos. We've got several close by, but one of those has a great museum of the Kumeyaay culture. And so we're going to take a field trip, try to not get distracted with the casino, but spend time in the museum and kind of explore that and pay respects that way.
And is that after church?
Yeah, that'll be separate.
Together?
Hopefully
Okay.
after, not during.
Not
or
instead
before.
of.
Yeah.
So Gabrielle had asked that I say something about the advocacy event.
Yes.
So every year for God's Work Our Hands Sunday, we do a justice advocacy event. Of course, we do routine justice advocacy events at my church. And while those are not exclusively focused on eco-justice, there is always at least one eco-justice topic. So we tend to offer between 4 and 6 different justice advocacy topics at each event. And 1 or sometimes 2 will be eco-justice. So it could be considered, I suppose, part of an observance of Season of Creation. But it is something we do routinely. And if there's anybody who wants to do something like that, I'd be happy to give you some pointers on easy ways to do it. I've had other people ask because there's easy ways to do it and not so easy ways to do it. So if anyone's interested, I'd be happy to assist. The other thing that I've been doing in the past several years for Season of Creation is a book discussion group. But this year, I decided I was getting tired of book discussion groups because I've done them for I forget how many years running. So this year, I'm going to reprise something that I last did 10 years ago. There is a study to accompany the documentary from Ken Burns, The National Parks, America's Greatest Idea. And of course, it's old. Like I said, it came out like 10 years ago, which is the first time I did it. But I decided I needed a change from book discussion groups. So I'm going to offer that study that accompanies the Ken Burns documentary, because the imagery is so gorgeous from the documentary, right? But instead of doing it in person like I did 10 years ago, it'll be virtual so that anyone can attend from anywhere. That's my observance this year instead of a book discussion, since I'm tired of book discussions for the moment.
I am curious too, for those of you who have planned Season of Creation events, and especially within worship, how I realize that most people have the next 3 months planned, depending on what type of worship group you have. But typically, how far ahead of time do you find, if you're someone from the pew wanting to ask for the first time to work with your worship and music committee, how far ahead of time do you think you should promote this, or at least slip it into people's mailboxes? If you were to speak as a pastor or worship guider.
I think you'd want to start pretty early, especially if you're going to include musicians and
Mhm.
people, the artistic people who want to plan things and make it a real participatory thing, early summer, I would think, to kind of, but not all churches are set up or have that kind of sophistication, but the more you can do, the better it becomes. It becomes much more special.
And more people to get involved, I imagine, too.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's great.
Mhm.
I had so much fun with Season of Creation and trying to think about all 5 senses and how I could bring whatever element I was doing, water, air, whatever
Yeah.
the element was. I would, I brought in just a little fountain and had lots of blue, draped to make it look like a river or creek or whatever. And I had a fan that was blowing and did a children's moment, around that, just things to remind us all through. And I had so much fun with my worship team doing that. So I think it's really it can make it a little more joyful, right? And with climate change, things can feel so heavy, and being able to celebrate in these ways can make it really joyful and fun.
Oh, you're absolutely right. I mean, there's so many opportunities, the visually, music, all these things, how you do that, sounds and textures, but opportunities that people don't normally have. A Sunday, for example, focused on cosmos. I had a member who worked for NASA, another member who was an astronomer, worked for the University of California. They talked about their faith and showed incredible graphics from their work. We had a video when we talked about storms, had people film little clips of what storms they experienced and how they nearly survived or barely survived. It was a wonderful chance for people to tell and talk about these things. Yeah.
I have heard too, we don't have quite enough youth in our congregation at the moment, but I have heard of congregations asking their youth groups to organize the Season of Creation, which would definitely mean planning before summer, because who sees their youth over the summer?
Mhm, mhm. Yeah.
I usually took my youth kayaking or hiking or something. Oh, Robert, jump in.
I love all this stuff, don't get me wrong. And everyone sitting around the table here we can understand and we can read doctorate level material. I think what we need is a one-pager that's written in 8th grade English that the average person can understand the science behind what we're talking about. So they're not reading a doctoral thesis. I don't know how to do it, but
Robert, I just want to clarify, when you say the science behind it, what kind of the fun science, or like the science, the hockey stick type science of prove it to me, or what parts of the science do you want to see in the season of creation?
Well,
But yeah.
because both are integral.
Mhm.
I didn't hear you. Can you say that again?
I said both. Both are
Oh.
integral. I'm sorry, my lungs are.
Oh no, it's all good. I'm getting older and can't hear as well, and it's on the computer. Well, I did want to share, you all know that you have there is a climate training that is for you all, that's for ELCA, that
Mhm.
does have the climate science as well as solutions, and weaves it into faith, that you, Robert, or anybody in your congregation that's 13 years old and up are
That's what I
invited.
was thinking about. We want to bring the kids in.
Yeah,
They're not speaking their language.
absolutely.
That's
Yeah, it's not one page, but the statement, social statement from the church, from the LCA, that is pretty heavy on science, but understandable, and it can be another resource to use.
I'll share and be able to let you know how it goes. I guess in 2 months, but for our church, we're sharing the film. Sorry, speaking of kind of trying to get lots of different people together, the film Common Ground. I don't know how many of you might have seen it. I know Interfaith Power and Light shared it, and a lot of communities are sharing it. It has a lot of the aspects of the regenerating life film that we shared together a few months ago, but with a lot of good looking actors and celebrities, right? So sometimes that's more palatable as well. And it's a really, I know that Kiss the Ground was a beautiful film. This, I'm sure, is also, and really has the farmer as hero. Anyways, we're sharing this, but I'm trying to work in combination with Hingham Unity, a Unity Solidarity Mutual Aid group, and reaching out also with a net zero sustainability group in our area. So trying to connect with other community partners and just kind of have it at church after church. So people don't necessarily feel like they have to go to church, but it happens to be at this venue. And so I'm hoping to offer church as a bigger picture place, as a invitation to people to be able to talk about stuff, especially to come together for one home, one future conversations and feelings in an election cycle. I really want to lean into the fact that the season of creation can help us through this. It's a good thing that season of creation comes at this time of year. I feel like it doesn't have to be either or. So I shared that in the chat, what we're doing. Oh yeah, thank you, Carol. That's the link to join One Home, One Future. Any other ideas too about what might be going on in your community already that you might want to join forces with or bring, especially if you don't have anything planned for season of creation this season? Can you look around as far as what's going on at your farmer's market? What's going, like, show up at your farmer's market as a church group? I mean, not necessarily, singing, although you could. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I know our church also is trying to have more farmers markets in our church. So after church, offering up some produce that we're all have to, throwing zucchinis at people because we have too many. But are there other things like that that don't have to be as official, like Christmas carols, but in September, totally. Maybe. Yeah, any ideas like that or experiences like that?
How about a walk in the park?
Perfect. With
Love
dogs even.
So there may be other, I don't want to say congregations, religious entities in your community that are having some kind of observance that's potentially ecumenical in nature. So for example, one year I worked with a convent here in Houston to organize an ecumenical observance of the World Day of Prayer for the care of creation, otherwise known as the Feast of Creation. Now, the sisters led the way, and what they call their chapel is actually an absolutely gorgeous building that most people would say borders on cathedral. Maybe it's just they're being humble or something. But it's possible that others in your community could already be planning something and you could at least participate. So it would be worth looking around, particularly as that feast, that observance this year does fall on a Sunday. So there may be others who are already planning something that you can participate in.
Thank you, Lisa.
Phoebe, I kind of wonder something, because in our area of Connecticut, we have been hit horrendously hard. Farms are done, they're gone. They were under 5 feet of water or more. As we're looking at that, and now we're hearing the word rebuilding, reconstruction, out of this totally unplanned disaster, and we're not prepared for it at all, but yet out of it, there's still hope coming. New plans, new places, new ideas. And it would be something wonderful if our faith partners could get together and just do something like that, or have an ecumenical faith service.
Yeah, you're hearing the opportunity and the need, what is happening right around you. Have you been able to listen to what people, especially farmers, need right now?
I think it's too early, because they're still trying to, there's still a lot of water there, and the roads are collapsed, especially in 3 or 4 towns around where I am. We weren't so bad. But right now, I think they're looking at, well, what's left? And they're not sure what's left at this point. But I think that if we could get together and focus, perhaps, I'm not saying, I'm not a pastor, so I can instrument some of this and suggest, but I can't create. I would like to, but I'm just thinking, if there are other folks from our area, and I believe other states were hit also, and they have been hit, maybe there's something we can do about an ongoing thing, out of disasters, out of unforeseen circumstances. There is still hope. Don't give up and sell your farm.
Lutheran Disaster Relief does really good work worldwide. And every dollar you send in goes directly to relief.
Yeah.
Because the salaries are already paid by the church itself. So please do.
And I know that our friends working in Lutheran Disaster Relief want to integrate a little bit more of the understanding that there are many different sides to disaster, and to show up on the front side as well is important. So to recognize also, what can we do to help build a resilient community? And building a resilient community means knowing each other. So what are the ways that we can know one another beforehand as part of that resiliency building is part of the disaster relief, like it's all woven together. So Sharon, to your point about just listening, and it's too early to tell, but to be ready for that, and to share with your neighbors that you want to be ready for that. Yeah, I would love to connect you to Sharon. Naomi's on the call too, one of my colleagues, and I know that we talk a lot about mapping, and we try to think at this high level of how to figure out, like, where are people going to need the church most, and where are churches that are going to be needed. But really, we need people in those churches to be already in community and in relationship with one another. So again, the more that the season of creation can get you out and about and out of church, or, at least integrated with different communities that's outside of your circle, the better.
Yeah, be where the people are when they need you, with the links to the resources they need when.
I know that, I'm sorry, I know that our synod is going to be doing a Church in the Wild event right at the end of Season of Creation. So
wonderful. And where is that again, Wendy?
It's going to be held at New Life Lutheran in Madison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Madison, Wisconsin, that is.
Yes. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Wendy.
Right?
So if from a year from now, does anybody, we have just a few more minutes. Anybody have anything that you want to put out there as to what you hope to do? Don't think, oh, gee, there isn't enough time to organize this now. But now, at near the end of this call, do you now have in mind something that you want to say? I'm going to do.
I would like to see my congregation do a full-throated observance where every Sunday there's a different creation focus. I have raised this, I think, every year for I don't know how many years with a succession of clergy. And the only thing I've seen done in all that time is what they've always done, which is a blessing of the animals for St. Francis, right? Because everybody likes to do that. I'll keep raising it. I always do my thing. I always have something that I offer to observe the season of creation. But as far as, you know, really going all out and spending the full, you know, 4 weeks plus, I haven't seen that happen.
I do think it takes a lot of work to kind of promote this, but also to promote it with the idea for pastors, especially that it's not just a lot of work for themselves they're creating. There's a lot of resources again that are available and ready to go with. And I keep promoting it always as a fun, exciting, interesting thing, especially during this time of the year when Pentecost is running kind of dry and they're not that motivated to get new things happening. It's really wonderful. If they haven't done it, maybe they can go someplace and experience some of it, and maybe that'll do it too. That's
a good idea.
In Reedsburg, we just got a new pastor at St. John Lutheran. And so she's only been with us for 2 weeks. So I'm going to give it a little time, but we're meeting next week and we'll be talking about what our plan is for integrating creation care into the church calendar and how we can do it. So I'm hoping that we can make an event of it next year. And I am also looking to do something like showing a documentary. And I love the idea of going ahead and doing that online, and maybe I can do the two concurrently. So.
Good.
Something came up there, Wendy. You're from Greensburg?
From Reedsburg.
Oh, I thought you said Greensburg.
No, this is in Wisconsin. It's a little town near the Dells.
Ronell Backus and I go out into the communities on a regular basis, pretty much every day, different communities across southwestern Pennsylvania, taking with us resources, and we will now include some of the resources that have been sent to us from LRC and IPL, my friend Lisa. I just keep those going out with us. And put them on the tables, get them out there.
Well, I would like to thank all of you for your messages of hope and anticipation and experience. I'm going to ask us to end quickly with, if we can spend just a couple more minutes with Naomi's thought here in the chat as to lifting up parts of nature that we might not necessarily think of all the time. If each of us who are on screen, not those who are driving, I don't want to ask you to do this, but I would like to have a cacophony of one-word prayers. So if we'll go around and just kind of popcorn out one thing in nature that we don't usually pray for, that you'd like to lift up and throw out as a blessing and offering. And I will send out the mosquito. There must be a reason, but mosquito.
I hate to say it, but the first thing that comes to mind is cockroach. I don't think anyone has ever prayed for a cockroach.
Praying for the cockroaches. What else?
Water lanternflies.
I would add endangered species.
I will add in vultures.
Plankton.
Poison ivy.
Nobody's mentioned ants yet.
Good.
Yeah, fire ants, they would be on the list too.
Hornets and yellow jackets.
And wasps.
Green sea turtles.
And let's add in fire, controlled fire.
Mm. Dirt.
Wonderful. Scientists would call it soil.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, same. Rafaela, I hope you're doing talk to text when you said that. Carpenter ants is what when she adds. Well, and God saw it all and said it was very good. Very, very good. Thank you all so much. Wonderful to have you together and see your faces. Have a wonderful month. And next month, we'll see each other with One Home, One Future, celebrating a year together. It's an hour earlier next month. You'll get the links and all. Thank you so much. Good
Thank
night.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.